advocacy as we know it is really the advocacy that deals with legislative advocacy or advocacy with decision makers or elected officials. That's the advocacy that most of us in this room know, that our library administrators do. We know that our trustees and our friends do, and our volunteers. And those last three categories are usually what we call the grassroots advocacy, but it's usually dealing and working with legislative folks, with elected officials or decision makers. And I say decision makers because that means for those of us who've been in school libraries and academic libraries and public libraries, that's who we normally would advocate with. This whole idea is frontline librarians and other library staff getting involved in advocacy. Now, the reason I wanted to do this years ago is because as a library administrator, I knew I didn't have enough time in the world to get to know all the students and all the faculty to be able to advocate with them. I only had enough time to do it with the folks that I knew best, the other deans, the provost office, the president, the board of trustees, the president's cabinet, and elected officials. And I kept thinking, you know, I've got this whole vast of human resources in my library who could probably very effectively advocate with that whole vast of human resources on campus, students and faculty. Who better knows the faculty than the librarians and the library staff on the front lines? And the same thing in public libraries and to some extent special libraries and school libraries. I don't know them. My management team didn't know them. But the librarians and the support staff know them, and they've dealt with them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So this was the whole concept, was to do this type of advocacy. Not to ask them to support a particular, that we would do with a legislator or a decision maker, but to talk to people at their comfort level and to talk to them about two basic concepts. First of all, everybody in the library, and I don't care what their position is, should be able, in their own words, at their own comfort level, be able to articulate the value of their library to their respective community. So for public libraries, it would be city and county, whoever their community is that they serve. Schools, it would be the schools, the school district. Academic would be college and the college and university setting. And then special libraries would be the government agency or the corporation. That is what I'm talking about as frontline advocacy. Not to go and talk to them about legislation. That's the administrators. That's half of this room's responsibility. But to articulate the value of their respective library to the community, and also to be able to articulate their value as library employees to that same community. Two simple concepts. And the reason we decided to approach approach it this way was because when I was thinking about this as ACRL president-elect, I talked to two reference librarians from different institutions in New Mexico. And I told them, what do you think? Isn't this a great idea to get you folks involved in advocacy? The female looked at me, and this is how I always present it, deer in the headlights look. And her response was, oh my, no, you know, that's my director's job. And his response was, oh, I don't think my dean would allow us to do that. And right there, we were able to identify, I think, what were the major issues in getting frontline library staff involved in advocacy, not legislative advocacy. So forget about the typical advocacy as we know it. We will still do it, but it's not the same advocacy that our administrators are doing. Now, what I understand when we were designing this is when you're able to articulate the value of your library and your value to your community, you're actually making a connection. Because in communication theory and marketing theory, for every person that you talk to, whether it's your friends, your neighbors, your relatives, somebody in your book club, somebody at the grocery store, they have the potential to talk to 8 other people. And it doesn't mean that they would talk to the 8 other people at the, right then and there. But when there's something going on, they can say, well, I talked to Patty, and she was telling me that the library offers these kinds of services. It's the people that you talk to in that second bullet who then become the connectors and become the grassroots folks. They're the ones that when something comes up, they can talk to the provost. They're the ones that when something comes up in a public library setting, they can talk to folks if you're looking at doing a mill levy or a bond issue, but at their own comfort level, Now, this is my martini glass. It wasn't meant to be this way, but I just want to, but somebody said, well, that's a martini glass. Okay? First olive. This is advocacy as we know it now. And we have to continue to do it, and we have to continue to be aggressive in doing it. Second olive. This is grassroots, which would include the trustees, the friends, and the volunteers. And we know that. We always talk about grassroots advocacy. We talk about the Spokane moms that really, made a difference in Spokane in terms of funding for school libraries. And the third olive, voila, the frontline workers. This is the group. Because when you think about it, we have over 67,000 members, and I would venture to guess that probably 15 to 20,000 at the max are administrators. Think if we could get 45,000 people who would feel comfortable to do 2 things: articulate the value of their library to their community and articulate their own value to that community as a library employee. That's what it's all about. Library advocacy, we always say, whose job is it? It's everybody's job. Every voice makes a difference. Now, Marcy, are you going to use, where's Marcy? Marcy, are you going to use the mosquito?
I wasn't.
Okay, good, because I stole it from Marcy. Marcy has a saying that she uses, that I use now. If anybody feels that they're so insignificant, they have not been in a room or in bed with a mosquito. So it doesn't matter who you are in terms of frontline advocacy work. It doesn't matter who you are. You can do this with the people you're comfortable with. I heard a story of President Kennedy going to Cape Canaveral. And when he was at Cape Canaveral, it was the end of the day, and there was a facilities person. And he asked the facilities person, he said, "Tell me what you do here." And the gentleman said, "Mr. President, I'm here to help put a man on the moon." So that is what I want you folks to think of, those of you who are frontline, and I want the library administrators to think about how you can best use the folks that know the users better than any of us do to do this frontline advocacy. Thank you very much.